Hello, my friends. St Germain, what a name, and what a magical place for me at that time. It was the cultural and artistic center of Paris, with in addition its fashionable private clubs where I tried to penetrate Castel, Region, or the rock and roll circus. Above all, there were all these bistros that I frequented a lot in the company of painters or architects from the School of Beaux-Arts. The Champs-Élysées was for tourists and suburbanists, and the collating quarter for suburban students. There was no other attractive district in Paris to my taste. I felt perfectly at home in this district where I love the old architecture and which seems to me the center of the world. But unfortunately, it was since turned into a museum for the wealthy people and no longer attracts me at all. Now that Sandy was gone, I took the opportunity to bring to my studio many girls that I used to flirt with on the street or at cafe terraces, which was quite easy in this district so much sought after foreign tradesmen. I had set it up with a bed on a raised platform and there was only one place to sit, which made relationship easier. One early morning, a girl came to spend an hour with me, then another at noon, and a third in the evening. Lucky it wasn't like this every day. Too tiring. I had an address book where there were always 10 to 12 girls I could sleep with. But since I didn't like any of them seriously, I would call them at the last minute and often found myself alone hanging out in a bar in the evening. In fact, I was always looking for true love, but since I met mostly foreigners passing through, my hopes were dashed when they returned home, like Gabriel, the Berlin woman had fallen in love with. With these female occupations and my work in architectural agencies, my studies had slowed down so much that one day I received a letter from the Zavaroni workshop telling me that because of my many attentions I was fired. I had to find another workshop where I wouldn't go through the bullying of the nouveaux. Presently, there was one outside the school and right next to my house, Bussy Street, the Chappey and Lenormand workshop. Mr. Chappey, being very hard and tired, it was especially Lenormand, much younger, who taught arts. He had built the Faculty of Law in Dassa Street, which was famous for its architecture at that time. I was warmly welcomed in this small workshop with few students, and I sympathized with two Britons from Prés younger than me. As I was always looking for a way to earn a living, working in agency being too random, I took up the idea of designing houses and I proposed to them to associate. We chose a suburb with many visible houses and went to Meudon to take pictures of all those that interested us. Then, back home, I projected the slide onto paper, which allowed me to draw quickly. Then, the two companions returned with a drawing board to go door to door. Unfortunately, many of the owners were absent, and my two acolytes did not have the commercial fiber. The idea was abandoned. In spite of the events of May 68, I achieved the values I was missing and I was promoted to first class. In 1969, there was still student unrest in the Latin Quarter, And one day, while I was walking a friend across the Seine, we ran into a wall of serious that let my boyfriend through. Returning to Rue Mazarin, I saw a change of gendarmes heading toward me. Knowing that he didn't care about details, I rushed with a frightened young man like me to the first building and we climbed up the very top. Fortunately, there was not yet the fashion for digicals. The gendarmes looked into the entrance, but seeing no one, they left. After a while, we went out again. But after a few steps, we discovered another charge of police officers. One could no longer enter the life-saving building. My companion threw himself face down under a car, and while I was very worried and wondering what to do, I heard a female voice calling me from a car stuck in the traffic. It was a girlfriend and her companion who saved me by inviting me to join them in their vehicle. Phew, it was hot. The policeman pulled the other boy out from under the car where he had hidden, beating him copiously, showing me what I had escaped from. 1970. I had long been attracted to motorcycle and decided to take the plunge and buy a small 125cc Suzuki Red. The first evening, to make me proud in front of the Café La Palais that I frequently associated, I took the bend too quickly and I peacefully spread out in front of my friends that I was wanted to impress. I had met a beautiful, much older, middle-class woman who liked me a lot, but she didn't want to enter into a relationship with me whom she considered too young for her. As for the vacations, I had decided to go with my machine to the French Riviera to discover Saint-Topez. She asked me to take charge of her 18-year-old daughter, a real hippie, who wanted to meet some friends on the shores of the Mediterranean. So I hit the road with the great Ingrid behind me. I told her that we were going to make a stopover in the Ardèche without giving her any more details. We arrived at nightfall in the middle of the countryside in a large house, and we were warmly received by a painter friend whom I had known in the brass band at Beaux-Arts. At the time, Ingrid wondered where and with whom she had taken, because I hadn't told her that Momo was completely disfigured as a result of a gas explosion that killed his parents when he was 12 years old. His hands looked like birds' claws because of the burns. After the astonishment of the first moment, we forgot his aspect, so much he was nice and his wife very beautiful. They had left Paris to get away from Hanover's curiosities and become gentlemen farmers with a very large property was as far as the eyes could see. It was his home. The next day, we arrived in Saint-Topez, where we walked long and wide without consuming anything, being both broke. In the evening, to sleep, we went to a forest in the back country to wrap ourselves in a blanket. But before we fell asleep, not being able to resist the sexual influence of my age, I made love with Ingrid despite her warning because she knew she was sick. The next day, we separated. She was going to join friends, and I went back to Paris toward the anti-prophylactics center to be treated for gonorrhea.